Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and what you're about to see is What you're about to see is a simple litmus test for Ronan's damage with and without his new uniform. So this is a stage 26 Shadowland level, very straightforward, and we're just going to be showing off the damage of his old uniform, which by the way I have at legendary rank. So definitely it's been kind of leveled up, and the care and love has been injected into it. However, as you can see, this is going to take the majority of the time, and if I'm not careful, I could actually still die to the lasers because I don't have any iframes, and I can't heal, I don't have a heal, and I just have to rely on my invincibility and my positioning, and actually, to be honest, it's probably very hard to do this without dying. But there you go. 50 seconds in, I had less than half of his health depleted, so it was probably going to take at least 2 minutes, possibly 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This is just a very simple first test. And so when we go over to the character and we go into the menu, he's rocking, well, we're taking advantage of Captain Marvel's. Let's switch it over and take advantage of his uniform. So this is like a full bonus of stats. So with his own leadership, and this is important here, this is a rank 52 Ronan with his own 3636, and he's rocking 23,000 and 33, almost 34,000 HP. Switch over to his newest uniform, which is Heroic, and this is actually something that I missed. It changes the effect, it enhances the effect of Accuser. So rather than being 36 all attack, 36 all defense to universal types, it's now 50% all attack, 36% all defense, which is insane. So with that 50% and all this other stuff, he now jumps to 25,600, and you know, he lost about 9,000 HP, but that's because the options for his HP are not there. With this old uniform, he's got, you know, almost 3,000 extra HP from those 2 slots. With his newer uniform, I opted for energy attack, and then I don't have the other uniform option because it's classic Nebula, and nobody buys this uniform because it's garbage. So I'm still contemplating what to do with him. Personally, I do believe that he's a better PvP character than PvE, but I do want to show you some PvE action because until I get him to level 70, he really isn't available, and he really isn't a threat to most PvE scenarios. But this is what he looks like with his uniform. So we're going to charge up with the new uniform. We're going to charge up all the way to the end. We're going to hit him off with the 5, and then we're going to lead into the 4. We can just do 3 and 2. Honestly, 1 and 2 do very little damage. The majority of the damage, almost all of the damage, comes from both 5 and 4. 5 applies a continuous damage as well as all defense down. And it also gives you immunity, and it gives you buffs and blah, blah, blah. But you have to hold it for basically the entire time. So we're about 30 seconds in, and we're already looking to kill him. So we're very, very close. As you can see, it's really not hard at all. So in terms of actual damage, in terms of Shadowland potential, this is night and day for Ronan, and this is probably as good as it's going to get for him. So if you use him for Shadowland and you like using him for Shadowland, this uniform is pretty much a must-buy because he can now dominate up to stages, you know, pretty much any stage in Shadowland he can do by himself. He also has the tag of villain and universal type, so that's great. And he's pretty straightforward to play, quite tanky, and now he can dish out enough damage to do Shadowland at level 60 and up. And especially if you go up to level 70, he can crush probably any Shadowland stage that he's capable of performing. And that was done, by the way, without a damage proc. Now, again, well, it's with the CTP of Energy Authority, but it's not a damage proc. It's stage 7 Power of Angry Hulk. Now, to discuss the character in a little bit more depth, I don't think that he's a PvE powerhouse. That's just an example to show you how much better his offense is from this uniform to this uniform. His first skill and his second skill remain pretty much unchanged, besides the change to his second skill that makes it a continuous hit and the guard hit. But the damage on 1 and 2, if I were to just do these 2 uniforms back to back, would pretty much be identical. It's really in 3, 4, and 5 that you see a lot more damage coming out, especially on 5 and 4, because 5 has those crazy self buffs, the 35% all attack, 35% crit rate, in addition to the all attack 20%, in addition to the all defense down. So that's really a big reason why he's doing so much more damage now, but you have to charge up the skill, which makes it a lot more difficult to pull off, and I'll show you what I mean. Law Enforcer also got a big change, which does make it a much better skill, and it's got an iframe at the end, which is better. He's got super armor and all defense, which technically means that he's better for Shadowland and better for World Boss because he can't get guard broken, there's no penetration there, so you don't even need to give him guard break immunity if you want to use him for PvE content. Additionally, and this is another reason why I want to bring up his potential as a PvE character, his Kree Justice passive, which with his new uniform, it still gives all allies 20% ignore dodge. That's not changed. That's the same. It's been the same since his old uniform. Well, actually, even with his base kit, it still gives all allies 20% ignore dodge. However, that 50% decrease all damage received, that makes Ronan extremely tanky because it's a crazy buff to give him. It's like Strife's buff. However, it's being applied incorrectly, at least. I mean, from what I read, all allies should get the first effect, and only Ronan should get the second effect. However, what's happening right now is that if you put Ronan on any team, all of the allies will get that 50% damage reduction, which is absolutely absurd. And if you want to check for yourself, go into the arena, go into Timeline Battle, and find any player that has Ronan on their team, and you will find when you go to another character and you click and you hover over to yellow box, that you will see the all damage reduction being applied. There is one character or one player around here called something. I don't know how to say his name. It's like Nebuchadrezzar or something like that. It's all caps, which, you know, is great, and it is it's got a bunch of numbers in it. I think he got bounced out of the top 100. He's not there anymore. But if I just queue up against a random opponent with this team, with Ronan, Minerva, and Captain Marvel, okay, maybe not this team. I want to survive so I can actually show you guys. Okay, yeah, okay, we'll definitely survive against Wolverine. I'll show you what I mean. So this is just a very quick test. I don't know if this is a bug. I don't know if this is supposed to be here long term. If it's not a bug, but here is the 50% Kree Justice all defense, all damage reduction right here on Ronan. We can see very clearly. But if we switch to Minerva, it's still there. But now it's 25%. Oh, that's hers. What? Where did it go? I don't know. It should be here. Is it here? There we go. Decreases all damage received by 60%. So it's actually really interesting. I just realized something else. If you don't have native damage reduction, you will get Ronan's passive. So in this case, Captain Marvel doesn't have damage reduction, so she was getting Ronan's 50% damage reduction, and then she was also buffing it by 20% because of her tier 2 passive, bumping it up to 60%. However, in Minerva's case, because she already has 25% decrease all damage received, it is not stacking. So she's not stacking his 50 with her 25 and going up to 75. So it's actually a really interesting discovery, and it basically means that for the time being, until Netmarble addresses this by either patching it and fixing it, or by saying, no, this is how we want you to use Ronan, you may find that some characters are a lot harder to kill in Timeline Battle, like Deadpool, like Captain Marvel, tier 3, because if Ronan is accompanying them, they've got a 50%, or in her case, 60% all damage, decrease all damage received, which is a lot. And for a tier 3 Captain Marvel, let me just tell you, I fought against a couple of them. It's extremely hard, and she's very, very hard to kill with iframes and the, you know, guard hit and the invincibility with her tier 3 skill, with her 5th skill, and the damage reduction. It's extremely difficult. So personally, while I am happy to see Ronan being used as a universal support and as a leadership because of this bug, I don't really like it because it takes away from his personal value, and it's supposed to be something that's for him rather than for everyone to use. And I don't really see him as someone to be like tanking for other people. I see him kind of tanking for himself, at least the way I've interpreted the character. So yeah, that's just kind of my take on it. I just want to let you guys know in case you find Timeline extremely hard, a lot more difficult than usual. But now I want to take you into some other content so we can see just how he processes, and he kind of rolls out against a little bit more challenging opponents. Because let's get real, Shadowland is a joke. So we're going to go up against Corvus. He's got 20% native ignore dodge with these two additional buffers here, and then we're going to give him another 4 to max out that ignore dodge at 100%. But I'm going to show you kind of the best case and the worst case scenario for Ronan's rotation, because as much as I enjoy playing as Ronan, and as much as I can't deny that this is a great bump for him, the playstyle is awkward and the playstyle is easy to punish. So it's very good against someone like Corvus because he doesn't have many iframes, or even someone like Proxima. He doesn't have many iframes, and the iframes that he does have, you can kind of easily anticipate them. But he does a lot of movements where he just stands there for repeated amounts of time, or he charges up to hit you with certain skills, and because of that you can, or when he's doing that kind of pokey move, when he stabs you a bunch of times and he paralyzes you, that thing lasts about 5 seconds, so that gives Ronan more than enough time to charge up his 5th skill. so you can easily get it off, and you do need to charge it all the way to see any sort of decent damage. And of course you also want to charge it up to get that all defense down and to get the heal that comes with it, because you are going to take some incidental damage. But you can see Ronan is charging up at the same time that Corvus is charging up, so it really lines up perfectly. It seems like he's probably only good against Proxima and Corvus. The one good thing I can say about this particular skill that Netmarble did manage to do is the targeting range, and I do want to point that out. Even if Corvus goes really far away, and you can see I can start charging up from here, which is quite far, and if I let go, he actually jumps and he makes the gap. Ronan will jump to meet the enemy. I don't know what the range is on this. I mean, it seems to be that far, but unless they go really far away, you will be able to get off your hit against them. So it's good. It doesn't waste the skill. It doesn't end up being, unless they iframe, it doesn't end up being interrupted. But if they iframe, it does end up being interrupted, which does provide a very obvious weakness for that ability. The other good, there we go again. The other good thing about his 5th skill is that the immunity applies right away. So if you cancel it, where is he? If you cancel it, he's dead. If you cancel his 5th skill, or if not cancel, sorry, if you cancel any other skill with his 5th skill, you will get that immediate immunity. So that is good, and that is something that makes the skill a little bit more flexible. But yeah, we're in deep trouble right now. But we need to charge it up all the way for it to matter. And if you don't charge it up all the way, believe me, it's not very good. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean. So we're going to, well, actually, we're going to have to switch here. But after we switch back, I'll show you how much damage it does normally. And it also applies a continuous damage effect when you hit with the 5th skill. So it's got a lot of kind of additional damage. Okay, purple lines. Yeah. We don't want to switch and have Ronan die immediately. We need this guy to just calm down for a little bit. But, yeah, all right, he's going to, yep, there we go. 1, 2, 3. If we just charge it up and let it go, you can see the damage. I mean, the damage of his other skills is still good because of the all defense down, but the damage of the actual 5th skill is not that good. And so you won't get the heal, and it really does reduce the utility of the skill overall. I mean, you can still do some damage, and of course, this is a stage 30 with a defensive build. Of course, I have very good support characters to help me out, but otherwise, it's just, you know, Ronan and the Strikers. So he could probably do a higher stage, but Corvus is one of the easiest world bosses, and Corvus is also a boss that has very low defense, so the all defense down buff really does shine against Corvus. So I do want to keep that in mind. I do want you to keep that in mind. Now I'm going to show you kind of the worst case scenario against an opponent that iframes a lot, against an opponent that punishes you with a lot of different effects when you are not in immunity. I want to show you against Thanos, and so we're going to try to actually avoid the purifying wind. What's the difference between purifying wind and blade twister? It's exactly the same. What kind of nonsense is this? Okay, toxic meteorite. That's fine. Okay, we don't need these strikers actually. So we're going to try now against Thanos. And Thanos, unlike Corvus, loves to iframe. And so it just exposes the weakness of this kind of charge-up skill. I think the best way that Netmarble could patch these sort of effects that Hyperion has, that, you know, Ronan has, that Korath has, is to make attack speed affect the charge-up rate. Because to have to sit there from, I mean, this is stage 7, guys, so this is not that impressive. But to have to stand there for 4 seconds doing literally nothing, allowing your enemy to interrupt you at any point in time, allowing them to penetrate you. Look at that. I completely missed by just a fraction of a second. Do you know how unsatisfying that is? Do you know how dissatisfying that is to have that happen? You know, and so players are going to be really, like, this is really great. Look at all that damage. That's awesome. You feel like Ronan's actually semi-useful. But then when it misses, and trust me, it'll miss like half the time against Thanos. When it misses, you just feel like you wasted your time, and just like, why am I playing this character? Why am I struggling to play this character properly when I could just be playing any other character? You need long stretches of time where the opponent literally decides to do nothing in order to get this combo off. And then look, he interrupts you halfway through with another iframe, and you gotta just sit there and you know, count your pennies. So this really needs some tweaking. We've said it before with Hyperion, and while the damage does look nice against the stage 7, believe me, he can't even clear stage 10. I've practiced, I've tried it, and my top 30, or top 30, top 50, top 70, whatever. Top 100, for sure it's top 100 Ronan, cannot even clear stage 10 with double support. So his damage is not good enough. On top of that, the all defense down, which is the majority of his success, is negated by the second half of Thanos's set here or battle, because he has the debuff removal. And while his damage is good, it's just not good enough, and it's just, you know, it's low, and see iframes, and now, I mean, I can get through because of the super armor and the guard break immunity. That's all great, but why would you play? See, look at that, interrupted again, and it's so frustrating. I have I purposely maxed out Ronan's attack speed to try and see if that would help at all in any way, shape, or form. And the other kind of backwards thing about it is, even though I'm not taking much damage, you have to charge up his 5th skill. If you think about it, you have to charge up his 5th skill for 4 seconds. The 5th skill gives you about 5 seconds of immunity. So you're basically wasting the entire duration of the immunity just to get an extra effect. Just to get a couple of extra effects and extra damage on your 5th skill. But then by the time you cast it, by the end of the iframe, guess what happens? Like right now, the iframe's over, he's taking damage, and now I can take damage. And because he doesn't have any iframes to follow up 5 with, and he doesn't have any immunity, he's screwed. So if they had, for example, just very simply, if they had made the 5th skill an iframe, and if they had made the 4th skill, instead of being an iframe, if it had been immunity, that would make so much more sense, because you could follow up the iframe of the 5th skill, you could guarantee that you always get the charge off, because of the fact that the charge skill was an iframe rather than being immunity. You could guarantee that you get the charge off every single time, because Thanos would have to just sit here and wait while I'm iframing. If this was an iframe, I could guarantee that I get it off instead of being interrupted for the 3rd time in the same match. And then when the iframe is over and the 5th skill lands, I could use the 4th skill immunity, and I could still protect myself. Would that make would that make Ronan OP? No, it wouldn't make him OP. Come on, let's get real. His damage is still not that great, and while his tankiness is good, and he appears to have, at this point, some sort of bugged value for PvP and team-ups, he's not going to ever be a super meta character. He can do a stage 7 Thanos. Wow. With a paywall support and Shuri. Riveting stuff. But just these small tweaks would really make it would make a lot more sense, and it would allow the character, and it would allow this type of mechanic, because I like this mechanic personally, and I don't want it to die, and I don't want our complaints to be misconstrued as this sucks. But I do think that they need to rethink the value of it, because, you know, in such a fast-paced game, and Netmarble knows that this game is super fast-paced. In such a fast-paced game, why would you create a skill that forces the character to just stand still for 4 seconds straight? It just doesn't make any sense. If it's an iframe, it makes sense. If it has tremendous damage, like some sort of channeling skill a la Cable's 5th, then it makes sense. But if it's not an iframe and it's not tremendous damage, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time for the player, and it's extremely frustrating when they get interrupted. I mean, Cable is frustrating when he gets interrupted, and he has bonkers damage. And it's frustrating because when it misses, you know that you just lost 5 seconds worth of face-melting goodness. But in Ronan's case, when it misses, you literally missed your only chance to deal any damage, because his other skills don't even compare to 5, especially if you don't apply the all defense down. So I just wanted to point that out. Ultimately, I think that while this is a huge upgrade for Ronan, this is definitely a fan purchase. If you're not a fan of Ronan, if you're not in love with the character in the comics, and if you don't want to see him succeed and, you know, personally play with him, you can totally skip this uniform, unless Netmarble comes out and says, you know what? Yes, the all damage received 50% decrease is meant to apply to all characters. If that's the case, if this bug is actually intended gameplay, then you might need to pick up his uniform in the future for certain kind of cheesy PvP tactics, especially in something like Alliance Conquest. But we're going to have to wait and see. Until further notice, I wouldn't purchase it again unless you're a super fan, because it's 1,000 crystals that you can definitely put to use somewhere else. So on another Kree. So let me know what you guys think of Ronan, the pursuer / accuser / Hammer Boy. Let me know what you think of his hammer being backwards sometimes. I don't know, man. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.